You're listening to Small Business in Small Bites, a podcast designed to help you better understand your customers, your business, and even yourself one easily digestible idea at a time. Now here's John Preston.
Today I want to take a moment to talk about something that small business owners would just as soon never have to think about. What do I do during an economic downturn or recession? What decisions should I make to ensure the future of my business and to ensure that I make it through this recession with as little problems as possible? Well, the first thing you need to recognize is that recessions are just part of the economy. You're always going to have them. In fact, since the United States was formed in 1776, there have been 47 documented recessions. And every time businesses come back, and the landscape is different. There have been 13 since the Great Depression. And every time businesses survive and the landscape is different. One thing to recognize right off the bat is that recessions are not bad for all businesses. In fact, if you look at the Fortune 500 companies in this country, over half of them were actually formed during recessions. GE, IBM, General Motors, Disney, Toll House, Burger King, Microsoft. The list goes on of businesses that actually were created during a recession and not only found their niche, but continued to grow and position themselves so once the recession was over, they were able to turn into major powerhouses. The first thing I want to say is I perfectly understand it is absolutely logical to cut your advertising when the economy turns. We all have fear. We fear what's going to happen, and we try to circle the wagons and bring it in. And when it comes down to laying off an employee or cutting your ad dollar, that seems like a no-brainer. But the problem is, dozens of studies over the last 100 years have shown that cutting your marketing budget during bad economic times leads to more cuts down the road because you're not able to sustain and reach customers. It's logical to make those cuts because the impact can't be seen immediately, but the impact is always seen. Let's take a look at some examples throughout history of where marketing has caused major shifts in the power play for large companies. In an article in September in Forbes magazine, Brad Adgate pointed out several examples and went into great detail about how specific businesses were able to change the landscape of their industry during a recession. First is in the cereal world. If you go back prior to the Great Depression, Post was the dominant cereal company. During the Great Depression, they slashed their advertising significantly, while Kellogg's doubled and tripled its advertising spend in places. Kellogg's created new products. That was when Rice Krispies came out. And over the course of the Great Depression, Kellogg grew its revenue by 30% and took over the lead in the cereal category and has maintained that position nearly ever since. In 1990 and 91, Pizza Hut and Taco Bell both increased their marketing significantly, while McDonald's cut theirs by about a third. At the end of the recession in 1992, Pizza Hut had increased its sales by 61%, and Taco Bell had grew by 40%, while McDonald's sales had declined. And it's interesting that ever since then, McDonald's has taken a very aggressive approach during recessions. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned throughout history. I'll give you one more real quickly. Go back to the 2008 to 2011 recession. Going into that recession, Marriott and Sheraton were two nearly identical companies. Sheraton slashed its advertising. Marriott increased its advertising. When the recession started to clear out, Marriott bought Sheraton. So we see this all the time. Now, all those are national examples. But that sort of thing happens locally time and time again in every industry. If you were to go back in any industry, to choose your own industry, back to 2007, and rank the most successful local businesses in that industry on a scale from 1 to 10. And then fast forward to 2011 and rank them again. And what you would see is a significant difference in the order of success for that industry. What you would see is probably about half of the businesses that were on that list in 2007 didn't make it and didn't survive. You'll see some other startups that moved up near the top, and you'll see some that were middle of the road that went up there. And inevitably, those rankings and that status is determined by which ones took the most aggressive marketing approach during the recession. Now, why is that? Why is marketing during a recession so much more effective than it is during standard times? The most significant one is the noise level is less, because your competitors are making decisions out of fear and not advertising. That means if you're a heating and air company and you're advertising, the other heating and air companies, not as many of them are. So you get a much larger share of the voice in the heating and air industry during the recession. And when you get a larger share of the voice, you end up getting a larger share of the market, because that drives that. The second that comes into play is people want to be assured that things are okay. Fear is rampant during a recession. And one of the things that you can do by advertising is you can show the world that you're A, not afraid, and B, that you're successful enough and stable enough to provide customers with great service and great products even when times are rough. And that is very, very powerful. As that louder voice and that sense of stability starts to permeate through the community, you will see the status of your business starting to increase in comparison to those that decided to hunker down and try to ride out the recession. There are some things that you will want to change about your advertising style and approach. In our next podcast, we'll talk about specific things you need to do within your advertising to make your voice even louder and have a greater effect through these rough economic times.